You pull your car up to the pump, turn off the engine, and step out into the smell of hydrocarbons. You swipe your card, grab the heavy handle, push it into your car, and squeeze the trigger. You lock the little metal latch in place and step back. A few minutes later, you hear a loud, satisfying click. The flow stops perfectly, just inches from overflowing. We do this ritual constantly, yet almost no one stops to ask how it actually works. How does a piece of metal, sitting outside in the freezing rain or blistering heat, know exactly when your tank is full? There are no digital sensors in that nozzle. There are no wires. There is no electricity. Mixing electricity with highly flammable gasoline vapor would be a catastrophic design flaw. So, the pump relies entirely on a 100-year-old mechanical trick. But that physical mechanism is only half the story. Just above that nozzle is a digital screen displaying a price that dictates the global economy. And the way those numbers move, shooting up overnight and drifting down agonizingly slowly, is driven by a completely different kind of mechanics. Today, we are running a reality audit on the gas pump. We are going to look at the hidden physics inside the nozzle, the psychological architecture of the station itself, and the economic blind spots that the media rarely explains when they talk about the price of fuel. To understand the modern gas station, we have to look at how we used to buy fuel. In the late 1800s, gasoline was actually a useless byproduct of refining kerosene for lamps. It was highly volatile and mostly thrown away. When the automobile arrived, suddenly this waste product was in high demand. But there was no infrastructure. You had to go to a pharmacy or a hardware store where a clerk would pour gasoline out of a wooden barrel into a bucket, and you would carry that bucket to your car and pour it in through a funnel. It was incredibly dangerous, highly inaccurate, and resulted in massive fires.
In 1885, a man named Sylvanus Bowser invented the first reliable kerosene pump, which was later adapted for gasoline. It was a hand-cranked system that measured exact gallons. But the real shift happened in the 1920s, with the invention of the drive-in filling station. For the first time, the architecture of the road was altered to pull cars off the street and into a dedicated branded space. If you look at the design of a modern gas station, every inch is engineered for a specific psychological and logistical purpose. The massive canopy overhead isn't just there to keep the rain off your head. It is designed to create a brightly lit, safe-feeling oasis. The lighting under those canopies is intentionally stark and clinical, usually running at a very high color temperature. This creates a psychological sense of security at 2 in the morning, but it also creates a high-contrast environment that draws your eye directly to the brightly colored, warmly lit convenience store. The pumps are placed at specific angles to maximize the turning radius of an average vehicle, ensuring that the maximum number of cars can flow through the property without creating a traffic jam that would deter people driving by. But the true masterpiece of engineering is resting right in your hand. The gas pump nozzle is a marvel of fluid dynamics. When you squeeze the handle, you are opening a main valve that allows pressurized gasoline from the underground tanks to rush through the hose and into your car. But inside that main pipe, there is a second, much smaller tube. This tiny tube runs all the way down the length of the nozzle and ends at a tiny hole right near the tip, the part that is shoved deep into your car's gas tank. As the gasoline rushes past the opening of this smaller tube inside the handle, it creates a physical phenomenon known as the Venturi effect. Because the fluid is moving so fast, it creates a drop in pressure. This low pressure creates a vacuum which constantly sucks air in through that tiny hole at the tip of the nozzle. As long as air is flowing freely into that little hole, the vacuum is stabilized and the main valve stays open, allowing gas to flow. But as your gas tank fills up, the level of the liquid gasoline rises. Eventually, the liquid reaches the tip of the nozzle and covers that tiny hole. Instantly, air can no longer be sucked into the tube. But the gasoline is still rushing through the main pipe, still trying to create that vacuum. Because it can't pull air from the tip anymore, the vacuum pressure violently shifts and pulls on the only thing it can: a small, flexible rubber diaphragm located inside the handle of the nozzle. When this diaphragm is sucked inward, it pulls a mechanical lever. This lever trips a spring-loaded latch, which instantly slams the main gasoline valve shut. Click! The flow stops. It happens in a fraction of a second. It is a perfect closed-loop mechanical system. It requires no power, no computer chips, and no maintenance. It relies entirely on the unchanging laws of fluid dynamics to prevent you from covering your shoes in highly flammable liquid. But while the physics of the nozzle are perfectly balanced, the economics displayed on the screen above it are anything but.
This brings us to the hidden ledger of the gas station. When you look at the price of gas, you are looking at one of the most volatile and misunderstood numbers in the world. It is the only product we buy where the price is advertised on massive signs visible from a mile away, changing daily. If you pay attention to the news, the narrative around gas prices is heavily fractured. One side of the media landscape will tell you that high gas prices are the direct result of corporate greed. They point to the record-breaking, multi-billion-dollar quarterly profits of major oil companies and argue that these corporations are artificially inflating prices to squeeze the working class. The other side of the media landscape will tell you that high gas prices are the fault of government regulations, environmental policies, and taxes that strangle domestic oil production and force reliance on foreign cartels. Both of these narratives rely on massive blind spots. To find the truth, we have to look at the actual ledger of a gallon of gas. When you pay $4 for a gallon of gasoline, where does that money actually go? Roughly 60% of that price goes directly to the cost of crude oil. This is a global commodity traded on international markets, influenced by wars, pandemics, and the production quotas of foreign nations. About 15% goes to refining costs, turning that thick crude oil into usable fuel. Another 10 to 15% goes to distribution and marketing, which includes the trucks that deliver the fuel. And the final 10 to 15% goes to taxes, which vary wildly depending on what state or country you live in. But here is the most critical blind spot in the public understanding of gas prices. The person who owns the gas station is barely making any money on the gas itself. We see a sign that says Shell, Exxon, or BP, and we assume that massive multinational corporation owns the property. In reality, over 90% of gas stations are independently owned franchises. The person running the station buys the gas at a wholesale price and sells it to you at a retail price. And their profit margin on fuel is razor thin, often just 2 to 3 cents per gallon after credit card fees and operating costs are factored in. The gas pumps are not the product. The gas pumps are the bait. The entire business model of a modern gas station is to sell fuel at almost zero profit just to get you to park your car, walk inside the brightly lit convenience store, and buy a bottle of water, a bag of chips, or a cup of coffee. The markup on a fountain drink can be over 400%. The station owner makes more profit on a single candy bar than they do on the 15 gallons of gas you just put in your car. This economic reality explains one of the most frustrating phenomena in the modern world. Economists call it the rockets and feathers effect. You have probably noticed that when the global price of oil spikes due to a crisis, the price at your local pump shoots up like a rocket almost overnight. But when the global price of oil crashes back down, the price at the pump drifts down slowly like a falling feather. It feels like a scam. It feels like the station owner is gouging you. But look at the mechanics of the supply chain. When the wholesale price of gas spikes, the independent station owner panics. They know that the next truckload of fuel they buy to refill their underground tanks is going to cost them significantly more. If they don't raise their prices immediately, they won't have enough cash to buy the next delivery. So, the price shoots up like a rocket to protect their ability to restock. However, when the wholesale price of oil drops, the station owner is sitting on thousands of gallons of expensive gas that they bought during the spike. If they drop their retail price immediately, they will take a massive financial loss on the fuel currently sitting in their tanks. Furthermore, because their profit margins are so incredibly thin to begin with, a drop in wholesale prices is the one brief window where a station owner can actually make a decent margin on fuel. They hold the price high for as long as the local competition allows, letting it drift down like a feather to recoup the losses they took when the market was volatile. The major oil companies extracting the crude are indeed making billions, but the local station where you actually swipe your card is playing a brutal, penny-pinching game of survival. The media often ignores this distinction because it is complicated. It is much easier to point a camera at a high price sign and blame a single politician or a single greedy CEO. But reality is rarely that simple. The price you pay is the result of a massive, interconnected machine involving global geopolitics, local tax codes, the logistics of heavy trucking, and the survival tactics of small business owners. Every time you pull up to the pump, you are interacting with two distinct types of engineering. You are holding a brilliantly designed mechanical tool that uses the invisible laws of air pressure to keep you safe. And you are participating in a highly engineered economic system designed to pull you off the road, capture your attention, and extract profit not from your gas tank, but from your appetite. The world isn't random, it's engineered. Every object you touch and every conflict you see has a mechanical blueprint and a hidden history. If you want to see the gears turning behind the headlines, hit the notification bell. We release a new reality check every Wednesday. I'm your host, and this is the Clarity Nocturne. See you in the next one.